in front of the document I'm sharing or not? Can someone please confirm it on chat? Do you see Art of Story Writing screen? Hello. Sapna ma'am, can you see the screen or the chat windows also? Can you
Yes,
please
sir.
check?
Chat. Okay.
You can see the chat?
Yes, sir.
Okay, I'll just share again. Okay, give me one moment.
No, sir.
Okay, only the screen, right?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Jai Bhim, everyone. Thank you for joining today's session, Art of Story Writing. We are in week 4. So, as per the plan, today and tomorrow are the last sessions on creating characters. So, this will conclude our generic understanding of the story structure. From next week onward, we'll be using these frameworks, these characters, evaluation criteria to jump deeper into each genre. Okay, and so far, I don't have any details about which particular genre you would like me to cover. So I'll continue with whatever was planned earlier. Today, we are going to go through some of the psychological evaluation tests, some of the psychological studies related to characters, and couple of movies. So most of these terms, these studies are available not only on the college university websites, but there are multiple YouTube videos on this subject, as well as some of these movies that we'll be discussing today. They are also available on YouTube. So I'm trying to share the details of whatever movies or other stuff is openly available on YouTube. Please, another announcement or information is some of you have been facing some challenges related to Zoom link. Please note that all the details of the meeting are or the sessions are available on Digital Nalanda website. So please refer to the Digital Nalanda website. With that, today we'll try to understand the characters using psychological studies. And I'll go a little bit deeper into that. So, with that, this is the quote from Charles Dickens, one of the prominent writers. It is a wonderful fact to reflect upon that every human creature is constituted to be that profound secret and mystery to every other. So, we all think from our own personal point of view. And that point of view uh, has been created, has been conditioned based on our own life story. So for us, the other individual is a secret or a mystery. And same is the case for the other individual. Now, while writing the characters, one key thing that as a writer you need to understand is you have to think what the character will do in a particular situation that you are putting the character in. Don't think how you will react or what you want the character to do. The character is primary. With that, we kick off the week 4 today about characters. The four, or I'll say, we'll combine these genres in upcoming sessions: detective thrillers, adventure or superhumans, as well as fantasy, historical fiction, and the last one will be sports and science fiction. On sports, I think we have discussed a lot about Iqbal so far. Uh, now let's start with a simple Aesop fable story. And I hope most of you would have read this story in one form or another. So a scorpion wants to cross a river but cannot swim. So it asks a frog to carry it across. So it's more of a capability Scorpio doesn't have, needs some help. The frog hesitates and afraid that the scorpion might sting it, but the scorpion promises not to. pointing out that it would drown if it killed the frog in the middle of the river. Now, here there is an agreement, or you can say the fears of the frog or the carrier or the person who's willing to help the character calls out the objections, and the objections are addressed by the scorpion in a simple statement that if you die, I die. As simple as that. The frog considers this argument sensible and agrees to transport the scorpion. Midway across the river, the scorpion stings the frog anyway, dooming them both. So they both drown. The frog dies because of the poison, the sting of scorpion. And the dying frog asks the scorpion why it stung, despite knowing the consequence. To which the scorpion replies, I'm sorry, but I couldn't resist the urge. It's in my nature. So, with this story, we start today's session. We try to understand human nature because, as writers, you need to understand humans. Because, first thing and primary thing is humans are the ones who are going to pay for your story. So, you need to understand uh, the humans. You need to find a way to connect with your audience and humans. The second thing is because you're creating characters, human characters in your story, you need to understand what your character is going to do, what kind of situation you want to put your character in. How are you going to test your character? And if I can use the word character of the character, how good, bad, uh, selfish, or the traits of the character. And even if you want to create an animals or a non-living beings based story, you would have noticed even they are characterized as humans. So in Zootopia, the bunny rabbit has to undergo police training. Her family is family of farmers, right? Same way, the other leopard or other characters, they are given a specific role, okay? And they follow a certain social hierarchy similar to humans, that you have the bodybuilders or the muscle as henchmen uh, for the mob boss. You have people working in restaurants, you have others working in the government sector for the driver's license test. So for different situations, even if it's a non-living being or animal, and for non-living being, the best example is Wally. Wally is a robot, Eva is a robot, but we see a lot of emotional connect between those two characters in Wally. So, how can writers understand humans? In today's session and tomorrow's session, we'll be going through Maslow's hierarchy of needs, some of the psychological experiments, some ethical, some unethical, but consistently giving us new insights into human psychology. Then there are some psychological profiling frameworks, and a lot of organizations are using it. The HR trainings, organization behavior trainings use that. Then I'll also introduce theory of multiple intelligences. So that helps when you put your character from one situation to another. One example is for Spider-Man, you have his friend who says, okay, I'm the guy on the desk because I cannot run with you on the streets, but I'll be guy on the desk. I am a computer nerd. So what kind of intelligence do you need? Then character archetypes. There'll be a slide on that. What's archetype and what's a stereotype? And then character arcs across the stories. Because at the end of the day, the transformation of your character is important. Now, this transformation is discussed or is visible in a lot of good hit drama movies. In action movies, it often gets diluted because of all the special effects, all the daring stunts that the characters are doing. But in a drama movie or in a drama book, you will see the changes in a character. And learning from that, your character should also change. And some of the characters don't change. Example is the antagonist or the villain. Uh, they only change the way of achieving their goal. and the goal is maybe the world domination, to get their hands on something expensive, something rare. So there will be certain character arcs that stay consistent. So we'll discuss those now. Another suggestion I have is that based on the kind of story you want to write, please do a research on that specific psychology. So, example, if you want to write on sports, sports psychology text you should read. Educational psychology, if you are in a system where a training or education is part of your storyline. Similarly, if it's an societal problem or a crime problem related to industrialization, how uh, the peers or colleagues of your character are working, then industrial psychology, and same way for criminal and detective, the forensic psychology. Agatha Christie used references to psychology repeatedly in both Miss Marple and Poirot. But in case of Sherlock Holmes, you don't see a lot of references to psychology. So I'm just giving you an example of two famous writers. Even their approaches were different, and they both had their own success stories. Okay. Research the experts in the field of that specific storyline, that particular character. So I just put an example here. You don't go to Warren Buffett for advice on sports, how to make a league, but for financial investment. And uh, for that also, you'll analyze from a different lens that when did he enter the market, what kind of position he's holding in the market. Is it good for me as an individual investor to follow what Warren Buffett does? Okay. So what are we going to study? We're going to study 25 psychological studies and experiments, which are as old as Pavlovian dog from 1890s in a military institute in Russia, to a recent experiment by Washington Post's violinist in, I think it was in Washington. And then we'll also go through the theory of multiple intelligences, on the psychological profiling frameworks, that how do you analyze or how do you tag a particular character as an ABC, or as a strategist, as a worker, or as a person who is always uh, trying to get something out of others. So for that, we follow the Jungian profiles or archetypes. So Carl Jung was one of the founders of uh, psychology-based studies. Then MBTI is another test that we'll discuss. MBTI test is very frequently used in HR organizations by a lot of self-help coaches nowadays, and it tells you what kind of personality you are. Some even say that you should have your kids undergo this test so that you can select the right career path for your kids, which I am personally find completely ridiculous. And if you get to come across some such person, um, give my compliments, because that person is selling you snake oil. Because life is built on experiences. We cannot be stuck in just how we respond to 20 or 50 questions. We'll also discuss some of the downsides of these tests. However, as a writer, as an author, your purpose is to understand your characters and how can you write better. Okay. Then there is a recent concept that's being discussed by some of the authors. It's called Enneagrams. Enneagram is an ancient Arabic Greek philosophy that actually has different aspects of what kind of personality a person has, and also what kind of personality that person can transform into. So that can help in the development of our character, whether we are going from positive to negative or vice versa. And please remember, like I mentioned, these tests and studies are indicative. Most of these studies happen under controlled environment within the university, or uh, they are based on certain assumptions based on the social upbringing. So we need to take the cues. while using these as references. We are not going to create a character which is completely based on one profile and does not fall across. We are all uh, complex beings, and ideally, these tests tell you what is the primary trait of your personality. It is not one single trait. You cannot be called out a single personality type based on any tests. It's on situation, it's on upbringing, it's on how you're feeling on that given day, that given minute. Okay. So don't take it in that sense that I have to ensure my main character is a fatherly figure or a motherly figure. No, please don't do that. So, what is archetypes versus stereotypes? Archetypes are guidelines for creating a character. So, how we understand the world around us, it's more like you see a person uh, using an expensive car, having a couple of people wishing him the morning or evening. You automatically realize this person is the top boss or the owner of the building, something like that. So it's a guideline for creating a character. It creates the sense of familiarity for the reader and for the audience. And then, based on our instincts and experiences, we recognize the archetype. So, as an audience, we'll have to understand our we will have to recognize the archetypes based on instincts and experiences. We will deep dive into some of the uh, female archetypes today. Now, we go to stereotypes. Stereotype can be overly positive or overly negative. Stereotype is a work of your lazy research. So I am from Punjab. The basic stereotype can be that I wear a turban or I have a beard. Just because most movies or other representation, Punjabis are being represented by a certain religion or regional minority. That is not the case. You have a mix of all kind of people across India or across the globe. So you cannot have oversimplified characterization of a person. You cannot assume that this guy, any random Punjabi song will play and I'll start doing Bhangra, which is pretty common in most of the Hindi movies. Right. So, and then the worst part of stereotyping is you are unable to make a complex character. And when you don't have complex character, you are not able to generate the required emotional response from your reader or from your audience. So be very careful, do some extra research on these two topics, archetypes versus stereotypes, because you don't want to have a stereotype. Like another one is nowadays we see a lot of hackers being these young kids wearing hoodies, having big headphones around their heads, and maybe colored hair and all that, and baggy jeans or something, a bag on their shoulder, right? So that's a stereotype. How do you create a character of a hacker based on the background of that hacker, where that hacker is operating? So be very careful about this. And the primary part of any character, because we are visual learners, humans, we consume a lot of visual data, and we give a lot of importance to imagery and visual cues. So physical characteristics are important. You may or may not want to write about it, but at least when you are creating a character in your rough note, you should understand what kind of looks your character is having. Can be face, skin, hair, age, or body type. And during the interaction, what kind of body language your character is showcasing. Similarly, behavior, the family, background, upbringing, education, what kind of dressing sense is the character having, the dialects and the language. It can be regional, and within a certain language, there can be some special phonics from a region. And then social and professional behavior. How does that your How is it that that character behaves in a social setup or a professional setup? And remember, most of the differentiation that we create in character is either around the nature of the character or how the character has been nurtured. So nature and nurture, in couple of the psychological experiments and studies also, I will refer to this. So nature is what kind of person you are, and nurture is what kind of upbringing did you have, your family, your education, which region you belong to, what kind of activities were you involved in while growing up. So before we start female archetypes, any question till now? Okay. Sapna ma'am, any other question on any other forum? If I am
No, sir.
talking too fast, let me know, because we have a lot of slides, lot of material to cover today. So if I'm fast, if you want me to repeat any of the slide, just drop a message on the chat and I will go back to that. So we start with female archetype. What kind of female characters are normally represented in the books or in the movies or stories? So the first one, mother, nurturer, caretaker, can be actually in the role of mother or a teacher or a nurse. The main activity of that particular character is to take care of main character, uh, providing the care at the time the character is hurt, or while growing up the character is attached to a motherly figure. And another emotional part is this particular character avoids any physical conflicts or confrontation. This character will mostly ask our antagonist, sorry, or protagonist, either way, can be related to both, to compromise, to ignore the situation, to not to uh, engage in a difficult situation. Now, those situations, those emotions can be used to set our character up for the the catalyst, that incident where the transformation begins. So, Kajal, we are talking about archetypes. I hope these will be clear after we finish this. If not, I'll go back again. Archetype. So, if you want some such character, you can use these tips. The second one is young, naive, often in distress or confused. So you can have young girls dependent on family. They want to uh, do something pretty simple. They need support from the family, but the support is not provided. They're confused about worldly things, and mostly the male patriarchal uh, setup will discourage them to do anything new, and then they can be easily duped or taken advantage of. It doesn't have to be a young teen or a young adult. It can be a person who has moved from a rural background to an urban background. Even those examples are often used in our stories. And the third one is a feminist, independent fighter, rebel. So the primary call out for this character will be, she will call out the societal wrongs in a different situation. She will call out how and when someone is stereotyping them, maybe making a joke on their looks, calling out whether they are cooking enough in, or whether they are good cook in professional setting. So one example is, one of my previous employers actually had a cooking competition on International Women's Day. So that's not archetype, that's stereotype. Okay, you are telling females that tell us how well you can cook, but that's not what they're there for. They are more than that. Okay, self-made and confrontational. There will be situations, and I'll take that example now. We are going to review the movie Mashal, and the very first scene of the movie is actually Rati Agnihotri being a feminist. She tells that the editor wants her to research how to make mango pickle, and she wants to do real journalism. So she's self-made, she's confrontational, and when this particular character goes to extreme, uh, she can be dictatorial or anarchist. She can be the one who says, okay, I own the power, everything will follow me because I have broken all the norms, I have set up a new hierarchy, a new social and a power structure, so everyone follow me, and there are no discussions, whatever I said is the truth. Okay, so uh, the reason I'm putting these different aspects for each archetype is that how can you show the transformation? Like you will see a mother being very submissive throughout her life will pick up a fight for her daughter so that her daughter is independent. Okay. Another archetype which is very commonly used is a distractor or a seductress. It has both positive and negative aspects, but typically she's associated with the antagonist. She's there to distract the uh, either the authority figures or to uh, ensure that the protagonist or his love life is disturbed. However, this particular archetype is intelligent, cunning, and at times you can showcase her as foolish too, that she uh, is blindly following the antagonist and doing all the wrong things. But you can create this character as a very, you can say, a character that helps the protagonist at the end at the moment of the twist. Okay. Then you have a wronged, a scorned female character, which is in an Avenger mode. So that particular character is out for revenge against individual or against societal setup. You have to at least give some hints to the emotional or the physical shock that led to the transformation. And once again, the extreme end, or it can be a transformation from a helpless person to a leader or anarchist with dictatorial powers. The sixth character within this, archetype we are discussing is heiress, be powerful or can be goddess. So it is often related to the family, that you have a very rich family, and see, in mythology it is very simple. She is somehow related to one of the all powerful gods. She has some powers. Now she might want to chart her own path by denying the gifts, by living a simple or a different life. However, at time she will accept her powers and transform. And the other example in a non mythical character is a powerful heiress to an business empire, and in that case she might want to do something completely different against the business norms, and there again she has some backing of the family, or she might go against the family. Another continuing that one, you have all powerful goddess. She can be in the form of protector or destroyer. Now, some of the key characteristics here are military strategist, leads from the front, is very confrontational, doesn't back down, can be wise at time and same time can be deceitful. So how you use that particular character, if she is your main antagonist, then you have to ensure that her strategies are way better than your protagonist, uh, and her wisdom is unmatched. Okay. And on the other side, if she's the main character like Vidya Balan in uh, Kahani, so she's the protector as well as destroyer. She leads from the front. She's so wise and deceitful. She outwits the police, the actually all the levels of cop. I mean, be it Nawazuddin Siddiqui's character or the other local policeman who's there with her. Okay. Then you have intelligent with business acumen. Now that is very common now, because you have a lot of stories that are related to business, whether a traditional business or a new business. And here you have exceptional talent. However, she can be doubted by the peers as well as the leadership. The transformation can be a positive transformation that, based on her intelligence, she is the troubleshooter, she is the go-to person, and she rises in the hierarchy. Or it can be a negative uh, change from where she goes against the organization, sets up the competition, and helps the other side. But intelligence is the key. She understands the business, she's the leader in that particular setup. And then you have charming, free-spirited characters. Uh, these are examples of, Priti Zinta or Rani Mukherjee movies from mid 90s. They break the mold. They are showcased as free spirits, irrespective of financial security. Although in most Bollywood movies or stories, they are uh, from privileged families, not to worry about the money. They have all the fancy stuff to play with. However, they are often paired with a serious or a strict male figure because you need to showcase the contrast. You need to get that emotional impact. So, and it can be various stages of the life. You can have a teen, a young adult, or an adult character based on this particular charming, free spirited archetype. So I hope the definition of archetype is uh, clear. It's more of a not a physical skeletal, but an emotional and the overall uh, blueprint of your character. What do you think that your character does, looks like, behaves? That is the archetype, and it should be based on your research. Any question till female archetype? And this is not an exhaustive list. Just because I'm saying it doesn't mean you cannot have a, like in Queen's Gambit, the female character, the female lead, she's so damn intelligent. I mean, she's kicking everyone on her way, but she's addicted to a certain medication and she needs to break that. Transformation is important. How you set this character up in the story is important. What kind of characters are you going to surround your main character with is also important. So you can have charming, free spirited, with a very cool parents, but then what's the conflict? There is no conflict in that. The parents are happy about what he's doing. So what is going to be your first emotional twist in the story? Will she be given a lot of responsibility? Will she end up understanding someone's difficult situation and takes it up on her to uh, change something? That's for you to decide how you run the character and change or transform the character throughout the story. Okay. The next aspect is Maslow's hierarchy of needs. So this was Abraham Maslow's paper on theory of human motivation in 1943, and you will see that a lot of motivational speakers, politicians, marketing campaigns, self-help coaches, they use the wordings from different levels to connect to you. Now, these five levels, the first need is our physiological need. We need air, water, food, shelter, sleep, clothing, and reproduction. So this is our basic physiological need. Maslow's theory says that unless my levels at the bottom are addressed, it's difficult for me to go for a higher level. Or once my physiological needs are met, I look for a different meaning, and that meaning will be safety needs. From safety, once I have personal security, I am employed, I have resources and health, then I look for betterment of family, intimate relationship, sense of connection. Now, that sense of connection is with like-minded people, or how that plays out, that is based on the individual. The next level is self-esteem. A person desires respect from people who are surrounding. The status is showcased. A person should be recognized for the strength and for the freedom, sorry, and should have freedom to do whatever he or she wants to do. So that is at the esteem level. Remember, this is a good framework to understand what motivates people. Now, most of your stories, if they start from a self-esteemed person who is rich, and you'll have to deep dive and see that people are actually afraid of that person. So the person is actually lacking the friendship and the intimacy. The personal security is paid for. So although the person might be very well respected, but there are some gaps at the basic level of needs. There is nothing higher and lower about it. This is basic. Unless I have my air, water, food, shelter, sleep, clothing, reproduction, I cannot look for employment, resources, health, property, because my safety needs will run into physiological. They are all interconnected, but there are level. I want food and air and water first. Uh, if I don't have food and water, it doesn't matter what kind of work I'll do, but I need to get that. I might not be looking for an employment that I like, because my first need is water and food. Okay. So, and the last or the highest level over here in this particular uh, structure is self-actualization. So self-actualization, uh, you will see a lot of this happenings in case of sports, arts, performance artists. In those stories, or even for writers or painters, that they want to be the best, or they want to push themselves to the limit, and they don't need to do that because they want to be respected, because they just want to be a better version of themselves. It frequently used. So these are the levels, and you can have this as a criteria when you are writing your antagonist or protagonist. So if a person is having self-esteem, is very well respected, but you'll see, okay, the person is losing money or resources, property, and that will impact water, food, and the lifestyle, which will in turn sour the friendship and the relationship and the family and the society they want. So even if it's a small incident that impact the self-esteem of the person, or primarily in antagonist's way, all these things will be impacted. Any questions on Maslow's hierarchy and how you can use that for your story? I'll keep this screen on for a minute. Let me check the chat. Okay, okay, thank you, Kajal, for your answer. So our next section is actually the personality types by Carl Jung. Now, again, these personality types were created based on the attitude and the psychology. So attitude is, and remember, this is the study that was done in 1930s and 40s. So today we have we are having a lot of debates that introverts can be. It's just that those people are not comfortable talking to everyone, but it doesn't mean they don't have any friends. They might have few friends, but they might have better quality of friendship than extroverts. So extrovert as a definition is more outgoing, interested in outer world, we often relate it to person who shows off his or her possessions. Introvert is a person, at that time the definition was devaluation of the object world, doesn't like uh, the material things, but at present it's more of a person who is reserved or only talks to very selected few people, not very socially active. Okay, so the behavior is such. Then the next aspect was psychological functions. Now, in psychological functions, there are two parts, and these both these parts are actual opposites. So one is thinking and feeling. So thinking and feeling is thinking is being very objective. I need to understand what the thing is, and feeling is, what is this thing worth to me or worth to us. So feeling is more subjective. So one example is, if there is something, let's say, I think it was in 2005 during the tsunami, when Harbhajan Singh actually auctioned his hat trick ball. Now that particular ball, if you look at objectively, it's just a piece of sports equipment that was used during a match, and there are maybe thousands of those balls lying around. But the feeling or the subjective part is that it's special. And I think Greg Chappell had purchased it for a huge sum, and he said there are not many hat tricks in the test cricket, and doing this is actually very big thing what Harbhajan Singh did at that time. So objective and subjective. Second thing is, or the second aspect of the psychological function is sensation and intuition. The sensation is, you can feel the thing and you know it exists. Intuition is, you don't understand it, you haven't seen it, you haven't sensed it, but you have a feeling in your mind that okay, this might work this way out. I can't give you a reason. I can't put finger on it, but something is wrong. So like in case of Spider-Man, it there's no Peter Tingle or some uh, sensory thing, or they'll say Lady Luck. So something which is based on intuition. Sensation is more objective. You need to calculate, you need to understand, you need to plan. You can use that sensation. So based on that, Carl Jung came up with 8 personality types. This deck will be shared with you, and I'll just go through them selectively. Okay, so I'll just say extroverted thinking. So thinking means I am not feeling it. It's not just based on feeling. I understand the outer world, but I always think about it. So I'm rational, I'm objective, and I'm idealist because I understand the outside part also. Introverted thinking, I keep it to myself, so I can be easily influenced by ideas. But when I have to do something, I'm independent, and I'm afraid of intimacy. When I say I mean the personality. Extroverted feeling, again, outgoing personality, but I do it based on the feeling. And feeling is more like, what's the thing worth to me? Okay. So extroverted feeling is, I relate well to external and I adapt because I know that things are not as straightforward as they look like. And introverted feeling, I can dig deeper, I understand the person or the situation, I am sympathetic. I am willing to please others or help others, and at the same time, I am dependent on selected few. But overall, I am a very reserved personality. Same way, extroverted sensation. Sensation, remember, sensation is more of an objecting thing here, something which we can sense with our senses, we can understand, we can plan based on that. So extroverted means I'm outgoing, but I sense everything and then only I take a decisions. So I'm friendly, I'm concrete, pleasant, and realistic because I can calculate also. I understand what the situation is, but I'm outgoing. So I go across a lot of situations. So I'm realistic. Introverted sensation, more to do with calm, passive, restrained, controlled, and controlling. So remember, the important part of controlled and controlling here is because I'm so calculative. Calculative is used in negative connotation, but here I will use it as a person who takes decision only based on sensing or getting the data points. And I'm introvert. So that means I will take time for the decision. However, by using those sensories, there are people whom I control, and I can be controlled also by others based on those selected parameters. Because if you see over here, I am dependent. I have very few people whom I interact with. Extroverted intuition. Extroverted outgoing intuition. I run the things the way I see fit. I just have a hunch about it. So it is borderline irresponsible outgoing enterprises. We'll see what happens next. Introverted intuition. Uh, I am an artistic person. I am obsessive about something, but I keep it to myself, right? So it's more of a dreamer, mystical, obsessive kind of a personality. I think Shah Rukh Khan's character in Dar can be something similar. That he is following and obsessed about Juchala, but he's such an introvert in most of the social situations. Another now, so these are the personality types. Now, at the character archetypes by Carl Jung, he shared some. So one is self. Self means the person or your main character is aware of what the character does consciously and unconsciously, and it integrates the various aspects of one's personality. The second part is the shadow feeling. The shadow feeling is self emotional blind spot or repressed aspects of personality. They're often considered negative. So we'll discuss this in Earth Satya later on. So this is more like, while growing up, what kind of experiences your character has had and how it molds your character. And at one point of time when all those triggers are right, the character does something which he or she may not be aware of. So repressed aspect. I think in Virasat, when Anil Kapoor kills his cousin, he says that I told you not to push me to the limit and all that. So the anima and the animus. Anima and animus is more about duality of personality. Again, remember this is the text from 1930s or research in 1920s and 30s. So anima was an unconscious feminine side of the males, and animus is the unconscious masculine side of the females. Because at that time, both feminine and masculine aspects were always associated with a particular gender. So mothers have to be caretaking and nourishing and non-confrontational and serve the family. Okay. However, the males can also do that. The males can have some emotional attachment to the kids. But what kind of attachment? Is it always about keeping my legacy alive or doing something extraordinary or a regular caretaker kind of an uh, emotion? And the persona is important. Persona tells us that irrespective of how I feel or an individual feels, based on the social situations, I adapt or for my own convenience. So one of I think the most stupidest muhavra in Hindi is time aane pe gade ko bhi baap banana padta hai. So right when the time comes, you are willing to put any mask, and these kind of people will be in your stories, people who are uh, part of the organizations, but they'll be the first one to switch sides when it comes. And based on that, then some text actually extends this to the story framework as the hero, young, inexperienced, but saves the day through sheer power, sheer willpower, or just by doing something which is completely outrageous, not thought of. The mother's character is, like I mentioned earlier, nurturing, caretaking character. Father's is more of a mentor, wise, powerful figurehead. However, that character may have both positive and negative influences. So you need to understand, in mythology, a lot of, uh, I'll say, conflict is between the kids and the parents for some reason or other. And then there is trickster. Trickster is not harmful. I mean, now we have seen it, but if you actually read the Norse mythology, Loki is actually uh, the most intelligent character in the whole Norse mythology. But because of Marvel movies, we consider Thor as the primary character. Thor in Norse mythology is actually the stupidest character. He's the one who's played by everyone. Played on mean he's put into difficult situation and then he gets stuck there. It happens repeatedly. So you can have the person, the trickster is normally related or connected with Loki, but intelligent, provides some comic relief, often at cost of others, but creates absurd situations. I mean, in Norse mythology, actually Thor's hammer, the spear of Odin, and all the other magical creatures that make the whole mythology such an awesome read is in one way or other connected to Loki because of his pranks. So, any questions on Jungian archetypes? I've tried to give some examples. The purpose is that when you understand a character, when you evaluate, and then you want to write about a character, what kind of traits or what kind of blueprint you want to use while writing that character. Any questions? Okay. We might not be able to finish all of them today. So anyway, I have kept some for tomorrow. No questions. Sapna ma'am, any other question on any other forum? Mm, nothing. Okay. So now we go into the experiments, the psychological experiments. Like I mentioned earlier, some of them were ethical, some were unethical, some were borderline unethical, whatever that means. Uh, the purpose of these experiments was to understand how humans learn from early age or in their teen years, as well as how they perform in the industry when they're working in difficult situations. So the first one is Pavlovian dog. It's been very frequently used as a conditioned stimulus or response. So uh, the conditioning of dog is based on expectation or related trigger. So at the time the dogs were fed with food, Pavlov rang the bell at the same time. So he actually calculated the amount of salivation or the amount of saliva in dog's mouth based on the expectation of the food first. But later on, with the trigger of bell, he realized that just by ringing the bell and not giving the food, the dog started salivating. So the dog combined those two triggers. The dog associated bell with food, and later on, just by ringing the bell, the dog started salivating. Now, the key here is that there is something called natural stimulus, that is salivation, which happens naturally. And by using a condition that triggered the natural response, we can condition the humans. So in a lot of stories, these are reflex actions. Some people who are used to doing something and they are put in a situation where they can be tricked into doing something, or uh, any one of the characters can trick the opposing character into doing something stupid or trapping them. Little Albert, 1920, again unethical. I think the first one we'll discuss today. More to come. So here they actually, with the series of pairings or multiple stimuli, the experimenting team understood or realized that even a 9-month-old child can be conditioned to develop irrational fear. So what they did was they started combining cute small animals or soft toys. Every time the kid approached and held the toy, there was a big, loud, scary sound. And the child actually, after repeating this, the child actually developed the fear for common animals and objects. So they were like bunny, teddy bears, uh, I think small pet rats or something are also mentioned there. So now that particular concept is extended that a lot of our fears when we grow up are often connected to the early childhood experiences. If you want to write a character having a good or a bad childhood, how can you connect those events to the adult uh, fears or behavior? Monster study. It was pretty unethical. I think in what I call is one of the most unethical of the lot, and that's why the title is called Monster Study. So the team, they asked or they collected orphan children who had stuttering problems, who were not able to speak properly. They divided them into two groups. One group was given a positive feedback throughout the learning process, so praised for their fluency, encouraged throughout the training. So whatever sounds they were making, whenever, even when they were not able to complete the sentence, they were given a very positive feedback. They were appreciated for all the good work they were doing. However, the sad part was there was no control group. The second group, and the control group in an experiment is the group that does not undergo any change. So it's like a regular life, a group that is not given any feedback or just undergoes the study as a regular curriculum or the regular teaching methodology. Excuse me. However, in this case, the second group were reprimanded for every mistake they made. Some of these students from this group actually suffered psychological effects and retained speech problems for rest of their lives. You can see these examples when some of the spies are being trained. They're being their trainers are being ruthless. They are punished severely, and then they end up having an you can say an emotional disconnect with most of their peers or when they enter the society. So overall outcome was significance of positive reinforcement in education. But in the movies and stories, you can also use similar examples to set up a character which is emotionally aloof, doesn't interact with others, and is always very detail oriented because that character has been reprimanded or severely punished at the time of the training. Ash conformity test, it actually is still used in some of the business schools as well as in some of the educational institutes. So this is a group activity where everyone thinks they are a participant. However, in a classroom setting, the answers are given to a selected few people, and then the participant sits with bunch of other people. The only key is that there is only one true participant. Everybody else knows what to say, and they will give a wrong answer to a known question. Okay, so so if somebody asks you what's the capital of India, so it's New Delhi, but 10 people who are next to you who might be showcasing they are experts in the field and they are from different areas in the country, they might say Kolkata or Mumbai. So by the time you are asked the question, You might think maybe you misheard the question. Maybe it was financial capital of India, or if everyone is saying Kolkata, you might say they are talking about British capital of India, something like that, and you might end up answering the question wrong. So it evaluates your likelihood to conform, and there is a social pressure around you to give the wrong answer because you don't want to be seen outside that particular group in which you are sitting. The next one is equally interesting and unethical. So took 11 and 12-year-old boys from similar background, divide them into two groups. They took them for a summer camp. However, both these groups were unaware of each other. So they were, you can say, staying in a relatively far off place, but they will come together for activities. So they were taken to separate areas just for 1 week to bond with each other. So these are now two units. But once the groups were mixed, the participants for each group showed hostility and prejudice towards each other. Now, this again, whenever you are writing in a different, not only in social, but uh, entrepreneurial or a professional setting, you will see that there's a concept called in group. People will always favor people they know, they have already worked with. They know that social, or nowadays it's also called networking. Okay, so the hostility and the prejudice was at such a level that they have even to and for the next level, actually, I'm sorry. So the first level was because they were just kept separately and then they were asked to meet each other and intermingle. The second trigger was that they introduced competitive activities, and that created more hostility, and it reached a point where the groups refused to eat together in the same room. Later on, they tried to bring in the activities such as fireworks or watching movies together, but that didn't help. However, the team then devised some exercises, teamwork exercises that forced them to collaborate. And then within hours or within a couple of days, they actually were friendly with each other and they went back to their respective places on the same bus. Now, these conditions or this example you can use for create having the interpersonal conflict within people coming from different groups, trying to establish, you can say, supremacy of one group over the other, and then there is a conflict. Can be used in school, college settings, sports setting. It's pretty common. I think Chuck De India used it pretty well. Uh, Girls coming from various background, various regions, everyone is a champ in its in their own terms, but when they are all brought together, now they have to work with each other. Okay. It's called Robber's Cave because of the camping and other things. Hawthorne experiment. This is more to do with the industrial psychology. So the the working conditions within a building were made more miserable. However, the efficiency and the output of that particular team or human subjects did not change. And the key reason was the the team that was being experimented upon, they were aware that they are being watched. So they considered that as a part of experiment that, okay, they are testing us, or what will happen if the light is the intensity of the light bulbs is reduced further. And now this, the other aspect of this condition is that collectively the team worked with each other and ensured that the output did not get impacted. I don't know if you have seen Andor. It's part of the Star Wars series on Hotstar. So you will see that there are very strict rules in that thing, that on the factory floor you have to give the output or you are deprived of certain uh, things in your daily life. Okay, so everyone is running against the target, and it's a difficult target, and then you are competing against other teams. So in such situations where you want to showcase very harsh conditions, working conditions, the management is against uh, the laborers, but they come together, they help each other out, and overall the productivity did not impact. Magic number seven, uh, you want to showcase a genius or something, but the experiment was more about, it's also known as Miller's law. So the number of objects an average human can hold in working memory is 7 plus minus 2. So if I have to give you 5 to 9 words to remember, chances are a person with really good memory can go up to 10. And we're not talking about exceptions. You can a lot of things are actually around that. The phone numbers, uh, when it started in US, they were, the area code was standard, but you don't have to dial area code, and most of the phone numbers were 7 digits. So these experiments have been used repeatedly by marketing also. They try to get 7 to 10 expressions of their advertisement by different ways on your brain. That's why you'll see anytime a new product is launched, everywhere it's the same advertising, and then it dies down. I think the best or the worst example is Night Manager. In the previous test match, uh, it was actually so bad that you had to mute it. You couldn't know how to get rid of it. Now it has been launched, and this test match, uh, there are very few advertisements because they want you to be attached to that particular stories upfront before the launch. So the second part to this is that when too much information or options are provided, it can lead to delays in the decision making or analysis uh, paralysis. Any questions till now? We have 3 more studies. I'll just go through them once again. Pavlovian is about condition. Little Albert is about again conditioning in humans, but based on our childhood experiences, our adult fears are uh, created. Monster study, stuttering, positive reinforcement, or negative struggle, where harsh punishments in case of mistake, conformity within the society, within our social pressure, robber's cave, again, competitive activities actually create hostile workspace, but the teamwork exercises uh, force us to collaborate. Another such example is a lot of corporate nowadays go to team building exercises. They do that where you have to work together. Hawthorne, when you are under observation, you ensure that the efficiency or the output is high quality, even though the working conditions are deteriorating, or you help each other. And magic number seven, how much information we can hold in our memory. An average human, not the memory champions. No questions. Okay, cognitive dissonance is a very key concept in psychology. So it is more to do with our understanding our belief system and what we are doing. Is it in sync with our belief system or not? So it is also related to understanding or recognizing our own biases. So the experiment here was that participants were given a very boring task. I think they just had to move a peg in a wooden board. And after performing the task, they were either offered $1. So one team was offered $1 to walk into the room. It was not a team event. It was like one participant will do the job, come out, and the participant will be given $1 to go into the room and convince the next participant that this particular activity is really fun. And the other set of participants were given $20. And at the end, everyone was asked, uh, do you think the task was fun? And the experimentation team knew that it was a very dull, monotonous, boring task. However, the $1 participants, the ones who were paid $1, they rated the task as more fun and enjoyable, and they did it more than the $20 participants. So the call out from this particular experiment was that because it had already happened and $1 is not an incentive enough for me to lie, I simply say, even though I know it was a bad task, but I'll still say, okay, it was a good task and I had fun. But $20, because a big amount has been given, that particular person or participant feels that I have been paid to lie. Okay. So that's an incentive for me. But at the end, when you are asking me to evaluate the task, I don't care. It's boring. I will say the truth. This is again used in marketing. This can be used in your character, that when a character achieves something or misses something or is close to getting something and then loses at the last moment, what kind of impact it has on the character, or something that is being taken for granted by your character. So visual cliff is actually more about the infants born with depth perception. It's not a lot to do with psychology, but it's more to do with that even little kids, uh, they can understand and how good or bad the floor is in front of them, and they just created a small visual cliff. It was not an actual cliff. However, surrogate mothers is a nice experiment, again controversial, but thankfully it was done on newly born rhesus monkeys. So if you don't know, rhesus monkeys brain is being studied very frequently because they are pretty close to humans. Okay, so they were the newborn monkeys were separated from their mothers, and then they were left to be raised by two surrogate mothers. Now the surrogate mothers were actually made up of, one was made up of wire, but it had an attached bottle for food. So they were like dummies. Okay. And the other one was made of soft terry cloth, but there was no food. Now, baby monkeys spend more time with the soft surrogate mother, proving that affection played a greater role, or you can say child parent child bonding was a higher priority than the actual nourishment or sustenance. And it is also in recent text, it's also developmental psychology, it's also related to the psychological safety of your child while growing up, what kind of environment the child is growing in. Okay, we have 15 minutes left. I have two more frameworks. uh, we'll do the other framework tomorrow, and I'll push this to next one. Any questions till now? I actually want to discuss two movies today, two stories. They're on the YouTube. You guys can search it and go through them. Any questions till now? We have only done a bunch of experiments. We are going to discuss a lot more experiments later, as well as uh, the characters, what kind of character arcs we are going to make. So if I don't cover it tomorrow, we'll cover it next 18th, next second. Any questions until now? I hope you guys are understanding how these studies or learnings from these studies can be used in defining your characters. I think someone had mentioned character of Joker. So where do you see that here? And actually, one of the studies will come later on, which is more related to Joker. It's related to the household violence you're growing in, as well as how you know that you cannot be saved by anyone. So you stop fighting the system. Okay, no questions. I'll do the MBTI later on, other experiments also later. Now, so went through the characters of movies, two movies actually. One is Mashal, the other is Ardh Satya. So I'll just discuss Mashal now first. So in Mashal, you have, I think I mentioned earlier, movie starts with Geeta as a journalist, role played by Rati Agnihotri, and oh, I did it ulta actually for Wahida Rahman. So, but the point is that Dilip Kumar is a journalist and he has a conflict with his main editor or the owner of the newspaper because he wants to publish stuff against Amrish Puri, plays Vardhan, who's a business person who might be part of the elections and other things are mentioned here. And he ends up losing his job. He doesn't have a place to stay because of the rent and other stuff. And then there are some small discussions with Sudha. Sudha is led by Wahida Rahman. So we know that Sudha, they talk about that, okay, uh, we don't have enough resources, we are living a very bad life, but at least we are being honest and all that moral aspect of being or following the true path or whatever. Now, once he's fired, he talks to his friend Kishori Lal, and Kishori says that, okay, played by Sayed Jafri. Uh, Kishori says, okay, I have a flat and a big piece of warehouse where there's a case going on. So you can stay there. So in typical Punjabi terms, it's like kabja. Even in, I think, North India, it's pretty common. So you just stay there until the case is resolved. Now, when that is the trigger that leads Vinod and Sudha to end up in a very in a poor locality which is just next to slum. And repeatedly they say, okay, I can smell the cigarettes, I can smell the liquor. People are so dirty here and all that, making I'll say derogatory remarks about the life in the slums. So Anil Kapoor or Raja is the main gunda out there, and then they show a conflict between another person. They are both rowdies in the same area, but that particular conflict shows that after that fight, Raja is undisputed. I mean, he owns the area. There is no bigger rowdy in the area than him. So he moves illegal liquor or whatever is required for the big cats. Now, then the story, there are interactions between Raja and Vinod, and finally, Vinod convinces Raja to go for an education because Raja had helped Sudha when she was actually on the road, uh, having some medical condition, and Vinod is far away at that time. So they discuss it, and Anil Kapoor tells about his upbringing, how he only studied till 10th. His dad passed away as a laborer when he was young. Mother passed away when he was a teen. That's all he could study, and now he's been doing all kind of bad stuff just to make end meets. And it's more about, he's the biggest rowdy in the area. Nobody can touch me. All that, uh, all those conversations are there. However, when the twist in the movie is that in the second half of the movie, or towards the end, Dilip Kumar actually becomes the biggest owns the liquor mafia with help from Vittal and Kishori, who are the other parties in his gang. And by the time actually Anil Kapoor is roaming around in old Bangalore, it still looks beautiful at that time. So when Anil Kapoor comes back and he wants to write about all these ills in the society, he sees that, or he finds out that Vinod is the one who's running all that. and then they have big conversations, whatever happens. But they still have one bigger villain to chase, which is Vardhan. So they still have one common enemy, and then his own, some of their own people, they switch sides. However, the character transformation in case of Raja is from negative to positive. There are certain emotional connects. He's given respect by Dilip Kumar's and his family. He's being talked nicely. Uh, he's called for dinner, and then he's given an opportunity to go and study. But in case of Dilip Kumar's character, Vinod, he actually goes from being a very honest journalist to the liquor mafia. And his resentment is that it's a very famous scene, Are bhai, koi roko, and all that. He's in the middle of the road trying to get cab for his wife who's dying on the pavement. So for Dilip Kumar, the point is that I wanted to do something good for the society, but the society doesn't want it. So if the society wants liquor and black marketing and all these bad stuff, okay, I will make money out of it. I no longer care about the models. I don't, I, because this is what the society wants. I tried hard. I lost a lot. I lost my wife to that because I wanted to lead a moral life. And the reason for that morality was that I wanted to publish the truth. I wanted to tell the stories of people who are being impacted by this illicit liquor. But society doesn't want it. So I don't care. Now, that is a transformation from positive to negative. However, in this particular conflict, they don't go against each other, they don't fight each other because there is a bigger cat in the system, that is Amrish Puri or Vardhan. Now, the roles of protagonist and antagonist changes. The female characters are they do, at least Rati Agnihotri's character is just there for dancing and showcasing some uh, new ideas and uh, a touch of feminist movement. But Wahida Rehman's character is, you can say that she sacrifices so much. That is what leads to Dilip Kumar saying, okay, I can't take it anymore. My wife was the actual person who lost the most. And during one of the conversations, he actually says that it's good that she died because she married a person like me who had nothing. We couldn't eat properly, we couldn't live properly. So, and there are moments of humiliation throughout the movie in different aspects. So the key here is, if you understand the character, at least Vinod and Raja, they transform. Amrish Puri's character Vardhan, that character stays consistent. I am bad and I will stay bad. I will do whatever is in my power to destroy whosoever comes against me or calls out. Sayyid Jafri is, he's actually a kabadi wala, and he is helpful. He also enters the business, the liquor business, with, you know, so he's like a true friend, uh, who is with Vinod in good or bad moments. And Neelu Phule's character Vitthal is somebody who used to do business with Amrish Puri, but then Amrish Puri took over his business. So he knows the trade, he has the link, he has the inside information about Vardhan or Amrish Puri's operations. So he helps uh, Dilip Kumar to be the biggest liquor baron or illicit trader. Now, it is based on one of the Marathi stories. When I was researching, I found that out. Even in the movies introduction, they shared that it's based on one of the short stories. So you might want to research that short story if you want. But these are the characters in the movie, how they transform. What is the loss? Which particular character's loss leads to the trigger? And how the morals and the lifestyle of the person changes. I mean, in the first half, it is repeatedly said that they call out how bad it smells, and in the second half, in most of the scenes, you see Dilip Kumar holding a glass with liquor in his hand. So even those small aspects are there in the movie. Any questions? I don't expect that you guys have seen it. And then all the background of bad upbringing or poor upbringing of Anil Kapoor, they do that in form of songs. There are a couple of songs uh, that do that. And I think the movie and the storyline overall is written by Javed Akhtar, this particular movie. Second one I would like to talk about is Ard Satya, again from early 80s, 83. So you have Anand Velkar, I think. I forgot the last name. So it's played by Om Puri. A local goon is Rama Shetty. Anand's father is Amrish Puri. He wants him to be a policeman because Amrish Puri's father or Anand's grandfather was a police officer with or a constable with the British, and then he's a constable, or he wants him to be at least DSP. So he's forced into this role, and then the system is completely corrupt. Whatever Sadashivam Rapurkar does, he always gets away with it. The senior inspectors, Patel and Haider, they're played by different characters. They ensured that nobody lays a finger on Rama Shetty, but Anand ends up having confrontations with Rama Shetty throughout the movie. However, two triggers in the movie, or two things that I found that were interesting. First is Inspector Lobo, who has been suspended because he wanted to do the right thing, and now he's a drunkard who just asking for money from different people, who's picking up fights, and he's giving such poor excuses just to get some money for liquor. So every time the emotional moment comes in the movie, uh, there is always a small scene with Inspector Lobo, just to remind Anand or Ompuri that if I'm not part of the system, the way system is, I might end up like him. Okay. And the second aspect is uh, Ompuri actually repeatedly says this, that I'm being, my manliness or my porush, the Hindi word porush, is being challenged by people like Rama Shetty. And who are these guys? So his ego is such that I am a sub inspector. Okay, why should I should be working for the society? Why I'm working for these guys? And the only person that calls that out is Smita Patel's character, because she tells him that every time you put on the uniform, you are a different person. She talks about, she says, you drink or you are violent, but the key is uniform. So now the analysis of the movie is that, is it because, so my question on this movie is that, is it because Ompuri has been given too much power as an inspector and he can just simply go around and hit people, especially the people who don't have political power, and people who have political power like Rama Shetty and others, uh, he can't do anything. So I'll not spoil the ending for you guys. But and the other question is, has the system changed? I mean, we are in 2023 now, so roughly 40 years since the movie. How is it different now? I mean, do we have similar tortures? And then the last question I have is that a regular person may or may not be the culprit, but in police lockup, that particular person is tortured, and those events happen repeatedly. So are there no rights for those guys? Just because this inspector, sub inspector is angry at his so-called girlfriend or at his bosses, he just goes in the lockup and starts beating people. So there's so many aspects from the overall structure of the movie, but uh, your analysis can be different. Again, Smita Patil plays a very strong character. She calls it out, whatever he's doing wrong. Other character, another thing is they had this communist discussions and communist posters on the wall, like they're going to change anything. So they try to create that setup of those library or the rooms or the research. So you have to see that what is it that the society or the uh, police organization expects from Ompuri, especially what his father expects from him and how he reacts to those situations. So that with that, I know we are doing a lot of psychology, but the reason for that is it will help you to create a strong character. Shul is a similar line on similar lines. Manoj Bajpayee, I think it also won some awards. Then I saw Ek Doctor Ki Maut. I have some completely different take on that. Uh, Similar to Mashal, there's a movie called Vidhata. I think they're both Subhash Ghai's movies. And in that movie also, you see a regular person who takes up the life of crime once that person is pushed to that. Then another character transformation is Guide. If I haven't seen that recently, I think it's book by R.K. Narayan. And then Jagte Raho by Raj Kapoor. He does go overboard in his acting, but overall the story is about hypocrisy of the society. Uh, so you can study the characters from this movie, and then there are a lot of there's a lot of stereotype in a lot of these movies. If you get time, please read these stories. Lost Child, Eidgah, Lost Child by M.K. Anand, Eidgah by Premchand, Pygmalion or My Fair Lady by George Bernard Shaw. Now, tomorrow we'll be discussing Ek Doctor Ki Maut and Jagte Raho. Okay. And along with that, we will go through a lot of other psychological studies and two tests actually, MBTI and then Enneagram. If you get time, go through that, get some examples that can help. And again, any questions anyone has on whatever we have covered today, I'll wait for a minute or we can close the call. The only thing I want you to understand is that these studies are related to understanding human character, human psychology. So it is important for you to create a great character. Tomorrow, when we do some character arcs, tomorrow, when we'll talk more about anagrams, we'll actually see how different personalities can be combined together to create some conflict. Or if you want a very strong female character, you need to showcase the struggle. You need to showcase an adversary that is far better and far stronger. But how the female character will use her strength and all the questions, all the time she was questioned for her capability, combine all that to overcome those challenges. Okay, so no questions today. Thank you. And I'll see you tomorrow, same time. Bye. Jai Bhim.